Casey Stoner just called Marc Marquez crazy, and the entire MotoGP world stopped dead in its tracks. But here's the real question. Was that an insult from a two-time world champion, or was it the most honest and loaded compliment anyone in the paddock has delivered in years? And why is Jorge Lorenzo issuing a serious warning to every manufacturer on the grid just weeks before the 26th season gets underway? I'm Ratan, welcome to MotoGP News. And today we are pulling apart everything, because this story is bigger than a single word. To understand why Stoner's comment landed with such force, you first have to understand what Marc Marquez has quietly become over the last two seasons. This is not the same rider who terrorized the grid through raw aggression and almost supernatural instinct during his dominant championship run. The catastrophic arm injury that threatened to end his career entirely forced something that no preseason test, no amount of track time, and no technical debrief can manufacture artificially. It forced him to truly think. And when Marc Marquez applies his mind to racing the way he now clearly does, he transforms into a completely different and far more dangerous kind of competitor. His comeback has been nothing short of a masterclass in athletic and psychological reinvention, and the most respected voices in the sport have taken notice in a very serious way. Analysts across the paddock, engineers who work with rival teams, and former champions who understand the demands of this sport at its deepest level have all pointed to the same observation. His racecraft is sharper, more deliberate, more layered, and significantly harder to anticipate and counter than at any previous stage of his already decorated career. He doesn't simply race anymore. He dissects a race while it is actively happening around him, processing variables that most riders don't even register until after the checkered flag has fallen. Casey Stoner, a man who has always been famously selective and honest with his assessments, broke down Marquez's qualities in a way that left very little room for debate or misinterpretation. His conclusion was striking. Marquez operates on a level that goes well beyond what conventional talent can explain or account for. The word Stoner reached for was crazy, and it is worth sitting with that for a moment rather than rushing past it, because Stoner did not mean it as a criticism. He meant it as a recognition that what Marquez does on a motorcycle at racing speed defies the standard framework through which most people in this sport evaluate riding ability. According to Stoner, Marquez's greatest strength is not his raw speed, impressive as that undeniably is. It is his extraordinary ability to simultaneously process telemetry understanding, direct physical feedback from the motorcycle, real-time tire behavior, grip fluctuation across different asphalt temperatures, and live race positioning, all of it at once. All of it at over 300 kilometers per hour, and all of it feeding into micro decisions that happen faster than conscious thought. Where most riders at the elite level react to what the motorcycle is doing beneath them, Marquez anticipates it. He adjusts his braking markers, his entry lines, his corner speed, and his throttle application based on information his body senses and interprets before any data screen in the garage can confirm it. Stoner also addressed something that consistently gets misread by those watching from the outside. Marquez's riding style appears reckless and borderline out of control, but it is, in reality, deeply and precisely calculated. Every aggressive move, every late-braking maneuver, every audacious overtake carries a specific strategic intention behind it. He understands with remarkable clarity when to attack and commit fully, when to apply pressure without yet revealing his hand, and when to manufacture a decisive gap in the closing stages of a race when his rivals are most physically and mentally vulnerable. That is not recklessness. That is chess being played at racing speed, and very few people in the history of this sport have played it at that level. What consistently separates elite riders from true legends in MotoGP is often not physical at all. It lives entirely in the mental dimension of competition. And this is precisely where Marquez's injury, as brutal and career-threatening as it genuinely was, may have paradoxically made him a more complete and more formidable competitor than he was before it happened. The extended time away from competitive racing gave him something that no test session, no simulator program, and no amount of data analysis can replicate. It gave him perspective and patience. He returned to the grid with a refined and noticeably more disciplined approach to tire management, a more measured and controllable race rhythm, and a much deeper intuitive understanding of when not to push the motorcycle beyond what the conditions will support. In the modern MotoGP era, where Michelin tire behavior has become increasingly complex, circuit-specific, and sensitive to subtle changes in track temperature and rubber evolution, that kind of restraint and timing is very often the difference between standing on the top step of the podium and suffering a costly DNF. Marquez now understands with full conviction that races are not decided in the opening laps, and he races with that knowledge embedded in every decision he makes from lights out to the final corner. The 2026 preseason test of the Sepang International Circuit sent an immediate and unmistakable signal to every team and every rider in the paddock. Pedro Acosta, one of the most gifted and highly regarded young talents this sport has produced in a generation, openly admitted that he was genuinely caught off guard by the pace, consistency, and overall stability of the factory Ducati machine underneath Marquez across that test session. Coming from a rider of Acosta's caliber and competitive confidence, that is an extraordinarily significant statement to make publicly. The Ducati was not simply fast over a single qualifying style flying lap. It was relentlessly and repeatedly fast throughout extended long runs, which is always the real and most meaningful indicator of a motorcycle that is ready to challenge seriously for a championship. Technical observers at the circuit noted substantial improvements in aerodynamic efficiency across multiple speed ranges, optimized weight distribution that benefits both corner entry stability and mid-corner balance, and electronic mapping refinements that together create a package which rewards and amplifies exactly the kind of intelligent, experienced, and strategically aware riding that Marquez now brings to every race weekend. This is in the most direct sense a motorcycle that appears to have been developed with the strengths of its most high-profile rider firmly in mind. Jorge Lorenzo, never a man who softens his points or dilutes his analysis for the sake of diplomacy, delivered what can only be accurately described as a direct and serious warning to the entire field heading into this season. His message carried no ambiguity. If Marquez succeeds in fully unlocking and maximizing the potential of the factory Ducati across the full range of circuits on the 2026 calendar, this championship could become uncomfortably and decisively one-sided at a pace that catches people off guard. Lorenzo was careful to emphasize that it is the specific combination of elements that makes this threat so uniquely difficult to neutralize. Not the rider in isolation, not the motorcycle considered separately, but the collision of a generational champion's mentality and adaptability with one of the most technically sophisticated and continuously developing machines in the history of Grand Prix motorcycle racing. He noted that Marquez's adaptability means he does not require a perfect weekend to extract championship-winning results. He can find performance and manufacture victories in imperfect conditions, on circuits that do not naturally suit the motorcycle's characteristics, and in races where rivals enter the final stages genuinely believing they hold the strategic advantage. That combination of resilience, intelligence, and competitive unpredictability is precisely what makes him so extraordinarily difficult to race plan against at any level of the competition. While Marquez and Ducati are dominating the preseason conversation, the rest of the grid is not standing still and should not be dismissed. Yamaha appears to be in the middle of a genuine and structured rebuild, with Fabio Quartararo reportedly pushing the Japanese manufacturer internally to significantly accelerate the pace of technical development, particularly in the areas of outright engine power delivery and electronic system responsiveness across different track surfaces. Yamaha has publicly targeted the 2026 season as a turning point after several difficult years. An ambitious target, but not an unrealistic one, given the manufacturer's well-documented historical capacity for rapid and decisive technical recovery when the full weight of the organization is properly aligned behind a single development direction. Honda, meanwhile, is navigating a deeper and more fundamental restructuring phase that is taking longer to bear fruit than the manufacturer would ideally prefer. Significant changes to chassis geometry, cornering balance philosophy, and overall bike architecture are actively underway, and the team has simultaneously shifted toward a far more rigorous and systematic data-driven development model in a direct attempt to close the substantial performance gap that has opened up between themselves and the leading European manufacturers. Progress has been gradual and at times frustratingly incremental, but Honda's long and distinguished history in this sport commands genuine respect, and the possibility of a significant mid-season performance step that reshapes the championship narrative cannot and should not be dismissed. the rapid and continuing emergence of a new generation of deeply talented young riders, with Acosta at the forefront but by no means alone, also ensures that experience and reputation will not be sufficient currency for any rider to move through this season without serious and sustained challenge from multiple directions. So here is the question that truly matters as the 2026 MotoGP season approaches. Is Marc Marquez's unique and seemingly innate ability to read a race in real time, to physically feel what the motorcycle is communicating before any sensor or data system confirms it, and to translate that information instantly into strategic decisions that shape the entire outcome of a Grand Prix, genuinely the single greatest competitive advantage held by any rider currently competing at this level. Because when Casey Stoner and Jorge Lorenzo are independently arriving at the same conclusion from entirely different analytical perspectives, that stops being opinion and starts being something the rest of the paddock needs to take very seriously indeed. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Marquez claims the 2026 world title, or is there someone on this grid with the speed, the intelligence, and the mental strength to stop him? I'm Ratton, and this has been MotoGP News.